Hey, what's up you guys, it's Connor and today I'm going to do my June wrap-up. So this month I participated in the hashtag TBR Takedown, so I talked about 5 of these books in my TBR Takedown wrap-up, so I will leave a link to that right here in that little eye, and I'll also just quickly tell you which books I read and what I gave them. I read Dead Weather and Sunrise by Jeff Rodkey. I did a review for this book, so I'll leave a link to that as well. I gave that book a 3.5 stars out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I also read Inda by Sherwood Smith, which I also did a review for that, so I'll leave a link to that, and I gave that book a 3.5 stars out of 5 stars. I also read Old Man's War by John Scalzi. I gave this book a 5 stars out of 5 stars. It was fantastic. I loved it a lot. Then I finished King of the Dead by Joseph Nassis. That is the second book in the Jeremiah Hunt trilogy, and I gave that book a 3 stars out of 5 stars. I didn't think it was as good as its predecessor, but I still enjoyed it. And the last book that I finished during TBR Takedown was Wintertide by Michael J. Sullivan. This is the 5th book in the Rhyera Revelations series, and I gave that book a 4 stars out of 5 stars. Moving on to books that I didn't read in the TBR Takedown readathon. Some of these books I've done book reviews for, so I'm not going to talk about them in much depth, and a lot of them I plan to do reviews for, so I'm also not going to talk about those too much, but I'll give you my star ratings and kind of the feeling that I had while reading them. The first book that I read after the readathon was Bloodsong by Anthony Ryan. This is the first book in the Raven Shadows trilogy. I love this book. I gave it a 4.5 stars out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it, and I did a review for this book, so I'm going to leave a link to that in the I symbol and down below so for you to go and check that out if you would like to. Then I finished Vicious by V.E. Schwab. This is a standalone fantasy science fiction novel that follows 2 characters when they were in college and then also later. And in college they figured out a way to give themselves superpowers, and present day they are enemies and trying to kill each other. This book is pretty much about the worst characteristics of humanity and how sometimes when people get power they become corrupted, and yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I would recommend this book for anyone trying to get into Victoria Schwab's writing because it's very fast-paced and easy to read. I think all of her books are easy to read, but some people, I've heard some mixed reviews on The Archived, but this book I've not heard one person say they didn't like it, so there's that. The next book that I finished was Rogue Knight by Brandon Mull. This is the second book in the Five Kingdoms series. The Five Kingdoms series follows a boy named Cole who follows his friends through a portal after they're kidnapped, and he's just trying to save his friends and survive and go back home. In the first book we follow him in one kingdom, and in this book he is in Elawir, which is a different kingdom with a different magic system and a different culture. I didn't think this book was as strong as the first book. I gave this book a 3.5 stars out of 5 stars. I liked it, and I more than liked it, but not enough to really like it, so that's why I gave it 3.5 stars. I thought the magic system was pretty loose. Mull would kind of define it, and then would break all the definitions for the magic system. So it was kind of frustrating that we had these rules in our minds, and then he wouldn't follow them, so it was, yeah, it was just kind of weird for that. And then I also thought the book was pretty predictable, so I didn't enjoy it as much as the first book, but I still liked it. I then picked up The Opal Deception, which is the 4th book in the Artemis Fowl series by Owen Colfer. I really liked this series. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. It was really good. I don't want to go into too much detail because it is the 4th book in a series of 8, and I don't want to give any spoilers. But Artemis Fowl is basically about a boy genius who discovers that fairies exist, and the main fairy character of the story is this girl named Holly, and she's just great, and Artemis is great, and everything's awesome. It's just really fun. And every book has this like coded message on the bottom of it, and if you look it up you can find out what symbol means what letter, and you can translate it and read the little message as you go along. It's really fun. I really thought it was cool. The message starts repeating at some point, so it's not like a continuous note that goes all the way through, but it was still a really cool element to include in a middle grade fantasy book. The next thing that I read is Thorns and Tangles by P.T. Hilton. This is the first short story in a series of short stories called Dane Holloway books, and I really liked it. I gave it a 4 stars out of 5 stars. I'm going to be doing a book review for that soon, so I don't want to go into too much detail because I already have all my notes laid out. I just need to film the review video, and then that will be coming your way pretty soon, hopefully. PT is a part of my book reading group on YouTube. So you can look for his link down in the description if you would like to check out his channel. Then I read Gardens of the Moon by Steven Erikson. This is the first book in the Malice and Book of the Fallen series. I have done a book review for this, so I will leave a link to that everywhere. And I gave this book 4 stars out of 5 stars. I am pretty excited to continue along with the series, and I already have the next 2 books on the way to my house. I then picked up Sorcerer of the North by John Flanagan. This is the 5th book in the Ranger's Apprentice series. I gave this book a 3 stars out of 5 stars. I liked it, but it wasn't as strong as some of the other volumes in the series, and it's kind of a setup for the 6th book, so not too much happens, and I don't think there's any conflict resolved in this book, so it is literally just a setup for the next book. But you are put into a different area of the world, so I enjoyed learning about that area and all of the customs that those people had. Also in this book, the main character is no longer the Ranger's apprentice. He is on his own now, so he is doing all of the stuff by himself pretty much. So that was something that was cool and new with the series. I then read Some Desperado by Joe Abercrombie. This is a short story that is about the main character of Red Country, which is a standalone novel in his first law world. You can find this short story in the Dangerous Women anthology, but I didn't want to go and grab it. It's on my shelf on the other side of the room, and I couldn't be bothered to go get it. I gave this short story a 3 stars out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it, but there's not very much development. Obviously, you can only do so much in 30 pages, but I did enjoy the story, and I am pretty excited now to get into Red Country. Next, I read Uprooted by Naomi Novik. This is a standalone fantasy novel that I would kind of consider upper young adult because there are some scenes in it that are for a more mature audience. It follows a girl who is in a town that needs to be protected from an evil forest by a wizard named the Dragon, and the Dragon demands that a girl serves him for 10 years and then she can go free, but it's kind of a fate worse than death because it completely changes every girl that goes, and the main character is chosen, and all hell breaks loose after that. I plan to do a full review for this because I gave this book 3.5 stars out of 5 stars, where everyone else seems to absolutely love this book and gave it 5 stars, so I am also going to do a review for this pretty soon, hopefully, and get some of my thoughts out there and hopefully have a discussion on this book. Then I read Jack Blank and the Imagination by Matt Miklusz. I don't know how to say his last name. It is right there if you're curious on how it's spelled. This book follows a boy named Jack who doesn't know his last name, so he's called Jack Blank, and he's a big fan of comic books, and then he finds out that all the characters from his comic books are real and they live in this place called the Imagination, and he is also from the Imagination. Once at the Imagination, he finds that it's not this happy utopia place, and there are some big plots going on that he is a part of. This is kind of a longer middle grade book. It's around 500 something pages, and the chapters are pretty long for middle grade, but the writing is obviously huge because it is middle grade, so it's not too terrible. I gave this book a 4 stars out of 5 stars. I plan to also do a review for this because I already have all my notes written out for it, but I think one of the main things that hurt this book was all the female characters, and there aren't many, are all kind of portrayed as weak, and they're weaker than male characters. I don't know if that's going to be the same in future books, but I still really enjoyed it, and I'm going to be continuing the series. I think I'm already going to order the 2nd book by the time this video goes up. I then read The Ghost Brigades by John Scalzi. This is the 2nd book in the Old Man's War series. It takes place 3 years after Old Man's War and follows a different character. I don't want to say much about it because it would spoil some things that happened in the first book, so just know that I really liked it and I gave it a 4 stars out of 5 stars. And the last book that I got, I read it through NetGalley, sending it to my Kindle, and that is The Blood Guard by Carter Roy. I gave this book a 4 stars out of 5 stars. I did a full review for this on Goodreads, so I'll leave a link to that review down below. One thing I forgot to mention in my Goodreads review was that it has a lot of Christian themes in it, so if you're not someone that likes some books with some Christianity in it, then I would say this might not be the book for you, but I plan to do a full review and talk about this book in depth, so you can look out for that review as well. I'm just going to be doing so many book reviews, it seems like. So those are all the books that I read in the month of June. If you've read any of these books, please let me know what you thought about them below, and I will talk to you guys in my July TBR. Bye!